been exciting for me. We have just been waiting for the day till essentially we could come back and make a video. There has been few updates where I think it makes sense to come back and do a movie. The things that we're going to talk about today, we are going to talk about the return of the comedy. This is great. It has been something that I think I've been waiting for about maybe 15 years, maybe 13 years, maybe more, maybe less. One thing that really there's two movies that have kind of revived my feeling of the return of the comedy. And one of them was Splitsville. I think it came out in 2025. It was a hilarious, felt like a genuine rated R comedy that, had I been there like in theaters when it came out, like would have been filled with like a laughing audience. Now, the second movie is Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, where I actually felt for the first time in a long time this feeling of being in a movie theater with a genuine crowd that like actually laughed, and it was hilarious. It was hilarious. I want to start with Splitsville as I think it's a kind of free right now and a little more attainable for the mass audience, and then we're gonna kind of get into Nirvana, the band, the show, and the return of comedy. So starting with Splitsville, this movie's free on Hulu. It was absolutely hilarious. It has this kind of pedigree to it that was good. It's these two guys. Their names are Michael Angelo and Kyle Marvin. And these two guys are hilarious. They are so funny. They have like another movie together that I haven't seen. I'm still waiting. It's called The Climb. I'm still waiting to get into that. But it was produced by Neon, so it's like a big heavyweight production company, and I just felt like when I saw that, I was like, okay, like let's kind of see where we're at here. Kind of like, I'll start at the beginning, the catalyst, like what starts this movie. It opens with this couple, and they're married, and she kind of out of nowhere lets him know that she wants a divorce. So in this blindsided breakup, he kind of goes to his best friends and seeks refuge in it, and this kind of thing. So he goes to like their beach house, and he's kind of just looking for emotional support from his best friends, but he kind of finds something else. There's like, they have this super happy marriage, and he finds that their secret to this super happy marriage is that they have an open relationship, and it's like a fully functional open relationship, and that's why they're so happy. So the plot kind of spirals out of control when the lead character finds out that his two best friends are in an open relationship, and it's kind of this perfect rules, but it kind of ignores like the primal human effects of jealousy and lies and all these things that are just like kind of like really there, and crosses the line and like sleeps with the woman, so not to give anything away, but it's like that's what happened. So Dakota Johnson, she's in this movie. I think this also revived my feeling of Dakota Johnson. It's like, did they try to cast Jennifer Lawrence and she just wasn't available, so they got, Spider-Woman to do it? I'm not sure. But the deadpan, the dry, the performance that she gave was very comedic, very niche. It wasn't for everybody, which I really liked. She kind of tries to pretend that she's intellectually above jealousy, but at the same time, dealing with her husband's like business problems. There's a few standout performances that I really like. Kyle Marvin is so funny. So funny. Why don't I see more of him? Why don't we see it all the time? He is so funny. These two guys are hilarious. it was like when I saw these guys go, I was like, this is so good. This is so funny. This is the kind of stuff that, you're gonna want to keep seeing. The other guy, Michelangelo Cavino, he kind of plays like a hypocritical guy who like acts like incredibly secure, but like a kind of like about this non-monogamy, kind of until it happens under his own roof. And that's tough. And there's a few, like, I think one of my favorite characters in this movie is the guy from Succession, Greg. His name's Nicholas Braun, but Greg in this movie is so funny. He plays a mentalist, and he has that awkward, very Michael Cera 2007, but like almost like an evolved version of that in this movie, and it's so 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 good. If you like him and you like the kind of stuff that he does, then I definitely recommend watching this movie. He's got a very small part, but the role that he has really kind of stood out, and as a comedic role, I feel like it was like very well done. If I remember correctly, he was in Sky High. He was in Sky High. He was a sidekick, and his power was that he like glowed in the dark. And so like sidekick, he like glowed in the dark, and like it ended up saving them at one point when they were all dark. And I think when I think of Nicholas Braun, I always think of Sky High and him being like the glow guy. But yeah, if you like him, then this movie is definitely like one of those things where he kind of has a small part, but his part is significant and it's funny. And I think really why this movie kind of represents the return of the comedy is really cool too. Like, it really felt like a true rated R movie. I mean, there's graphic nudity and like the language they don't hold back. There's highly adult themes. And they're kind of like combating that safe, like modern Hollywood, Avengers kind of humor that's for everybody. It's supposed to be for everybody. That's the $1 billion script we got here. That's the $1 billion script. There's this Avengers Marvel type comedy where it's just like these quips, these quick little gags. It's awful. It's awful and I hate it. It is not funny. It is supposed to make non-English speakers laugh. And I can't handle that. It's not for me. It's so not for me. But this movie got away from that. It was like more of a niche set of comedy where I think that's really where the comedy is going. Is it's not for everybody. They're finding their audience and they're hitting them. And for those that find it, love it. And that's what I've been asking for. And when I watched this movie, it was recommended to me by a coworker of mine. And it was so funny. I'm sitting in bed laughing out loud by myself. Okay? No, I'm not high I'm not drinking, I'm not smoking. This is so funny. Perfect movie to watch like with a girlfriend or like, probably not with your boys, but still super funny. If you watch it by yourself. That's the recommendation. Let's see, what are some other points here? So like I feel like it was almost like a comedy of hypocrisy. I think the funniest parts of the movie come between the gap between what the characters say they believe and then how they actually react, which is very different. And it has this like very improvisational vibe where I feel like the director of the movie kind of just let the actors like kind of do their thing. And it just felt very natural and off the cuff. It didn't feel very scripted. And the pacing was very good. The kind of like visual gags that they did. There was this fight scene that was really funny that kind of went on for a little too long. And it was like throughout a house in a fight scene. So they like kind of fight throughout the house. And they're like breaking things and like throwing each other onto a table, and the table breaks, and like they're kind of just destroying this house, this fight. And at the end of the fight scene, they end up in like a upstairs bedroom that has this giant fish tank in the bedroom. And as like the fight leads into the bedroom, it clearly has a giant fish tank in it. And you go, okay, well, they just destroyed everything else in the house. The fish tank's getting busted. And then they fight and they get in the room, and maybe it takes like a second before one guy throws the other guy. And then you saw it coming, but you still laughed. And, you know, I genuinely like that. You know, kind of to feel like, give you a good feeling for Splitsville, and like as a genuine recommendation would be like how rare it is to find a genuinely funny, like messy adult comedy that's, you know, like it's not boring. It wasn't like spoon fed or like too much. Like it knew its audience was smart, and I really liked that. It didn't think its audience was dumb. It didn't like do too much of that narrative explaining that we see so much of but don't like, you know. And I just think that's great. I think how it was pitched to me was that there was like 5 or 6 multiple laugh out loud moments throughout the movie that are like so ridiculous you're just laughing. It's like watching, you're like, that's good. No way, that's really good. You're like, I like that stuff. That is what I've been asking for. They didn't spoon feed me with this Marvel fucking joke between Thor and Loki. It was just awful, but it was very chaotic. You know, the fight scene and the dynamics between friendship and lovers was really big too, which I really liked, as, you know, anybody can relate to that. There's times in your life where you're in a relationship and that friendship is really important to you and you don't want to lose it. And that's like, and sex is always one of those things that kind of divides that. And he, you know, is like best friends with this couple, and they have an open relationship. And then he has sex with a girl, and the guy was like, you can't do that, that's my wife. But they have an open relationship, so it's allowed, but yet frowned upon by this guy, which is totally not fair. I empathize a lot with all sides. Like, you can agree with everybody. That's rare too, where you see all sides. You're like, okay, well, yeah, well, that's the case. So then it's okay. Well, then, but it's really not okay if it's your friends and your friend's wife. But the connection was there and everything's fun, and why not? These are the rules that we established. So, as you can see, that dynamic can be very complicated, and this movie did such a good job of that. I want to praise Dakota Johnson here. I never thought that I would say that out loud, those words, I swear, but her dry wit, the humor, she was the glue. She was the glue of this movie. She wasn't necessarily the funniest parts. She wasn't necessarily like, you know, kind of in the scene, but like, it was a very a glue guy type situation where I feel like she did such a good job, and it felt like almost like a 90s or like a 2000 throwback. I'd like to, you know, kind of just start by saying, like, I think you should stream this movie for sure. Track it down, kind of watch it as like the modern comedy, as it is legitimately, for the first time in a long time, a feeling of mine where I was like, dude, this movie's really good, and it was funny, and it didn't take itself too seriously, and it kind of just felt like the encapsulating of a window of these people's lives. I'm sure that this has happened to someone in real life, and it doesn't seem too ungraspable. It seems real. And so, final score, we're going to give Splitsville with Dakota Johnson a. Hold on, let's think about it. Think about it. I'm going to give it an 8.8 on the comedy scale. On the movie scale, it's an 8.8. Again, comedy's niche now. It's not for everybody. This movie might hit home to some people. It might not. I would say if it doesn't, it's better, for sure. You don't want this movie to hit home for you. But, you know, if you don't like Dakota Johnson and she's somebody that if you were streaming and you saw her, you'd be like, I'm not watching this, like I was. Put that to the side. This movie was good. And I recommend it to everybody. And I just, you know, say, why not? Let's go watch it. Let's see what's going on. And that leads me to our next movie, which it's gonna have a higher rating. I think it's gonna have a higher rating. I really do. And we are talking about Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. Okay, I rewatched this recently. I've seen it one time in theaters, and then I rewatched it at home. Paid, you know, I rented it. Amazon, gift card, grandma, thanks. But truly, this was the revival of the comedy for me in theaters. For example, I went and saw Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, in theaters with a bunch of Star Wars fans, and it was almost like I was at Comic-Con, and like us knowing that it is one of the worst Star Wars movies, we all knew that going in. But the theater was packed. There wasn't a seat open. And during all of like the really hard to watch scenes, specifically with Anakin and Padme, we all know that they're so bad that we know that the direction that George Lucas was taking when he made that was supposed to be really a scene about tired. Like a serious talk about how Anakin's devotion to her and her relationship with him and work balance with that was like very bizarre. We laughed at all the weird scenes. It was like a laugh thing. And we all sat in the theater, and it was like being in the theater again where we were all laughing so hard for the first time. It was like 2008 for The Hangover. It was like 2005 for Borat. It felt like that again. Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. It felt like that again. I remember leaving the theater revived. Like, we're back, baby. These two guys are so good, but it's niche. I'm a Tim Robinson guy. I'm a Tim and Eric guy. I'm a Nathan Fielder guy. That very, like, how do I say? It's, like, the type of humor that makes you feel uncomfortable. These two guys, it's like they made this movie for me. It's not free to rent yet, which is why I'm doing it second. But once it is, I recommend everybody watches this movie. Although, I feel like it is a niche type of humor. This absurd, like, absurdism humor. Was, like, very much my thing. I do feel like this movie would make anybody laugh. Or at least it should. You know, I mean, it's like, let's get into the movie. Let's just get into Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. I think that's fair. This movie is about these two guys, and they're like in a band, and they're talking about a very real place in Canada called the Rivoli, and it's a venue that their band is trying to play at. They accidentally traveled back in time to the year 2008, and they kind of go through this accidental time travel thing. So it's like a sci-fi, but it's also like a comedy, and it's so good as like somebody that lived in 2008 and can remember it, but like wasn't worried about the economy crashing. I was just 2008. I was 11. So I remember it, and I was like, as they go back in time, you see their depiction of 2008, and it's like you were there. I was like, it was so cool to feel like maybe how I felt when people went to go see Back to the Future for the first time, where they go into the past, and then the people in the theater that were there, they go, that's so cool that they depicted it so real. And it was like that for me as well.